Hello and welcome to Birth of a New Dimension. My name is Aurora. I'm a galactic walk-in, and for this next hour I'll be speaking about the topics that I speak about almost every week. How the Flying Rainbow Lasagne is a shape that represents non-duality and how you can apply it to your own genetic structure and your consciousness in order to achieve greater degrees of freedom and higher dimensional perception, how that is relating to events on Earth or in Earth's trajectory of consciousness right now, how this is relating to our understanding of, let's call it, the diversity of consciousness that exists right now. Some of it is housed in organic, cellular, human-appearing bodies, and some of it is not. Some of it occupies the interstices or the membranes or the meniscus between realms, and some of it lives in a higher dimensional state, not utilizing technology, using only pure energy or pure consciousness, and many different aspects of consciousness in between. So these are the basic players in a large cosmic drama. Brief pause while we get going. This is a cosmic drama that has been played out for beyond thousands of years, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of years. And it is distilled into this present moment, the present conflict that we are experiencing on Earth, like the planet herself and Earth's noosphere. And this word is spelled Noosphere, and the noosphere is defined as all thoughts that are in existence on Earth. So like the biosphere is the realm that is the combination of all living matter, what we would define as organic life on Earth. The noosphere is the realm that is comprised of all thoughts of consciousness on the planet. And that includes human consciousness, dolphin, elephant, whale, cat, dog, plant, microbe, mineral, water. Everything that has consciousness has a viewpoint, and all of those viewpoints add up to this beautiful mosaic or the totality consciousness. And this is true not only in our planet. With our planet we call it the noosphere, but this is also true across our galaxy and across our cosmos. You could think of yourself and your own consciousness as one little cell on a very giant retina of an enormous entity, and the information that is gathered by each of the little retinal cells or little sensors that are out here, we all send back our individual perceptions, and the greater entity adds those individual perceptions up, weaving them together into a mosaic or a tapestry of consciousness. And this is like the way that a composite eye works. Like a bee has a composite eye, and it takes many, many hundreds of images of a scene that are like facets of a gem, and then combines together those various facets into one viewpoint. So this is my understanding of consciousness, and we can call it Christ consciousness, but I have to make a distinction because it has nothing to do with the Christian religion and Christian dogma that is shared in this time and place. I would almost like to rename consciousness something more neutral and abstract, and not having an anthropomorphic association such as the word Christ has to Christian. Because over the past 2,000 years, there has been like a club, a secret club built up about whether you are a Christian, whether you belong in the club, whether you will or will not be saved. And what I am referring to is a piece of your anatomy. It's like saying, do you have a heart? Do you have a circulatory system? Yes, you do. And we each have it. So it doesn't matter whether you are, what belief system you identify with, what your cultural background is, or what your level of education is, has absolutely nothing at all to do with your access to Christ consciousness. Christ consciousness, I am defining here in this broadcast as a galactic and beyond higher dimensional consciousness that is the totality of all of these mosaic viewpoints all adding up to one another. And I'm being distinct here, distinguishing from Christian dogma in the idea that this is not a state which is exclusive to certain people. It's not only a club for certain special people. Plants can be in the club. Mineral life can be in the club. Microbes and bacteria and yeast and fungi all can be in the club. Things that you wouldn't even define as being quote unquote alive according to organic cellular structure can be in the club. Basically, in order to be in the club, you need to have consciousness, and that's it. And you get connected to this network. When I say divine is another word for the feelings that we get when we are in touch with God, or something that is the higher intelligence and organizing principle. So all of this in this broadcast and everything that I share with you is about bypassing intermediaries. You do not require any intermediaries, not even myself, not even the Flying Rainbow Lasagne. Brief pause. Yes, so you do not have to pray to the Flying Rainbow Lasagne or ask permission of it or ask permission of any larger entity of consciousness to utilize it. It's like an instrument or a color. You don't have to ask anybody's permission in order to use the color red. You get yourself a paintbrush, get yourself some paint, and start painting and playing, start playing with the color red. So the Flying Rainbow Lasagne is open source code for your DNA. And here in this time and place, many people can hardly believe in the idea of openly sharing a valuable idea. People can understand keeping a valuable idea as a proprietary or a secret that only certain wealthy people have access to. That seems to make sense. You have a great idea, you patent it, and then you only sell access to certain wealthy billionaires, right? It's hard for people in this time and place to understand that if you have created something that is truly of value, the best thing you can possibly do is to share it freely, that this absolutely increases the value of what you have, and you get to make more and more interesting, let's say, projects or explorations or new combinations of events and ideas from openly sharing what you have created. So a good example of this is the Rodin coil, that's spelled R-O-D-I-N. It is a donut or toroidal shaped coiling of actual copper wires. And when you create this coiling, it's according to a specific shape And the coils have to have a specific interval. Just like with music, in order to make beautiful music, your instrument has to be tuned correctly. And if all of the strings of your guitar are the correct length and the correct tension, they will make beautiful music together. Well, if you coil together copper wire in just the correct shape, and, that would be the correct tuning for this instrument, it starts to do very interesting things. It has some interesting electromagnetic phenomena that it exhibits, some of which are over unity qualities of energy. That is the idea that more energy comes out of a device than is placed into it. Another interesting phenomena is the area of magnetism in the core, or the hole of the donut. The donut hole, the empty space, is the convergence of many different overlapping magnetic fields that are created by the flow of electrons. And you can do some very interesting things with that magnetic field that is created there. Small things levitate, and the magnetic field is maintained even when the power source is closed down. So this is just one interesting thing. If you're into it, do some research into the Rodin coil, R-O-D-I-N, and also vortex-based math. This will begin priming your consciousness for the Flying Rainbow Lasagne, which is the next level. What cube is to tesseract, the torus is to Flying Rainbow Lasagne. So the Rodin coil is a torus shape, and it is the beginning of the foundation understanding for which, when you then begin moving it in a higher dimensional space, you will create the Flying Rainbow Lasagne and the phenomena associated with non-duality. So all of this is a journey of consciousness. You have to understand humanity right now is being uplifted along with the planet and the entire noosphere. Everything that's here, everyone that is here, is getting to think at a higher frequency. And when I say a higher frequency, like in a voice, it would be like talking like this, but it's not just that we're doing everything in a higher tone. We are able to process things more quickly. The idea of frequency means that more wavelets move past one fixed point in a certain amount of time. You're literally energy moving at a faster rate. Frequency is one way of measuring this using common words in science, okay? So we're talking about consciousness being able to move at a faster rate. And this is what the journey is right now. You and I as individuals, the planet herself, all of the life that is here, we are all raising our frequency, and this means we are tuning our physical and non-physical instruments of awareness so that we can be part of the symphony, the collaborative effort that is happening on a higher dimensional level. And in the levels of density that we have occupied up until this point, humans and human consciousness have not had overt, or let's say intentional, access to these realms. It has felt like being separated, or like there is a distinction made between the physical realm and the realm of pure potential. And so, brief pause. This message, and the reason why I do this radio show, it is all about a message of personal empowerment and teaching you about, as a multicellular human organism on Earth, about your multidimensional paintbrush, your imagination. Your imagination is not just a silly, nonsensical, invisible part of your mind that society condescends to and denigrates. Oh, no. That is society's definition of what your imagination is. But your imagination is a very powerful force and is another aspect of your non-physical anatomy. Your imagination and your capacity to visualize or envision something that does not actually exist in physical reality. This is part of your capacity to shape and create reality. It is part of your paintbrush of your mind. So many secret societies knew or know about the profundity and power of your imagination, and this is why information about it has been suppressed. It's why society has aphorisms such as, if wishes were horses, beggars would ride, meaning, yes, you have no money, you cannot get anything done. It doesn't matter how vivid your imagination is. And that's totally the opposite of what is truthful. So in this time and place, humans are conditioned and given the belief system to say, if you don't have billions of dollars, you're pretty much nothing and no one. You can't get anything done. It doesn't matter how vivid your imagination is. If you don't have money, you can't get anything done. And this is totally not true. It is not true in a cosmic sense, and it is only true in this time and place because it's a falsehood that many people have agreed to uphold as if it is a truth. So the truth is that even if there are, let's say, a dozen billionaires that have huge holdings, that own a lot of corporations, control a lot of stocks, control a lot of the stock market, control things like the mainstream media and the industrialized world, that is a very, very thin slice of reality for them to control or to have power within. And they do not have power in the realm of energy, imagination, creative life force energy. Those are the things that really matter. That is the place where our power really matters. And those beings that have a lot of billions of dollars, they don't necessarily have a lot of imagination power. So now let's contrast them with like a starving artist or a starving musician, someone who literally plays on the street corner busking for cash and lives hand to mouth. But that person is connected to life force energy, like the capacity to improvise jazz music, like, your saxophone player like John Coltrane or someone like that. That person has a connection to divine higher consciousness that is literally priceless. It's a gift, exactly. It's a gift beyond any amount of money. It is tapping into the patterns that are at large in the higher realm. And really, genius musicians, people like Mozart and John Coltrane, these are the people that we know as being famous for doing this. And we call it genius because they conformed their patterns as an individual to what the larger structure of the harmonic symphony of the cosmos was doing. So that is what true genius is. It is when an individual becomes a conduit or a container for these larger patterns that are part of the currents of consciousness that are flowing through the cosmos, and this is beyond this moment right now, but through the past and into the future, and braiding together, like weaving together, many divergent times and places and consciousnesses. So this is a much more powerful position to be in. A person who is braiding consciousness, connecting the past, the deep antiquity to the far distant future, through the spontaneous creation of artwork, if it is sonic artwork that is music, or if it is visual artwork, or if it is dance artwork, that those creators are infinitely more powerful in their creation and in their connection to the divine or higher consciousness or higher dimensional reality than a person who has a big bank account. This is really important for you to understand, because I'm presuming that my audience is not comprised of billionaires, and I'm presuming that my listening audience is comprised of people that have a minimum amount of money in the bank, in the physical bank, have a great deal of energy and passion in their non-physical energy banks. It's why you listen to this show, and we are the people that are getting together and giving birth to the new dimension. So again, up until this point, for all of human history, the past 5,000 years, which is a mere blip on the radar screen, the definition of who is special has been according to who has the gold, who has the markers for wealth and the physical wealth that you can point to. However, the people that are really special are the people that have new ideas, the people that have the capacity to innovate, to come up with something new that has never been done before. So I used artists and musicians as an example. It's also anybody who thinks of anything new, any inventor, any person who makes a new machine or writes a new software program or creates a new dance movement. These are the true wealthy people that are here. And our society, we're giving birth to a new world. Our society is going to return to equity and really begin rewarding the people that have the imagination power, that are really the source of where innovation is coming from. So up until this point, it hasn't been that way. A person that has a great idea, like an inventor invents a machine, and then an entrepreneur, entrepreneur, the word means to take between two people. That's a person that doesn't have great ideas, but they have the capacity to take a great idea from one person and connect it to another person and get money by doing so. And that this is literally how our economy is based. So again, it's not about the farmer creating the tomatoes, making all of the money. In our day and age, the tomato producer makes a minimum amount of money but does all of the work, and it is the person who is the entrepreneur who comes along and buys the tomatoes at a low price and sells them at a high price that actually makes all of the money. And this is totally corrupt. It is not the way that the system was designed. And the system is changing. We are in transition, and this is definitely something to be celebrated, even though many people fear it, because if you are an entrepreneur, you would live in fear. You would say, hey, you know something, I know that I don't really create anything that is of value, and my service that is here is really only service to myself. So I understand that if the system returned to equity, that my personal life circumstances would not be upheld. These are people that would want to preserve the status quo. The status quo cannot be preserved. It is not a sustainable system. So it has to be changed. And this is really my role of being here. Aurora, why are you not living on an interdimensional cloud? Why aren't you doing, swimming backwards through a sea of cosmic rainbow vapors? Why are you actually here in the physical realm with all of the challenges of having a body and working within the earthly physical economy? And the answer is because my presence here and the concept of the Flying Rainbow Lasagne is and are returning this system to the state of equity that it's supposed to be in. So the message is that each one of us has an imagination, and let me use an example so that you can get an idea. A caterpillar turning into a butterfly. This was a mutual conversation I was a part of not long ago, where the person was amazed to learn that when the caterpillar goes into its chrysalis, it actually transforms into goo, a large undefined amount of stuff that doesn't have cell walls. It is not anatomical. It's just a bunch of potential, a bunch of organic nutrients and potential. And that out of that goo and undefined potential arises a beautiful butterfly that is so delicate and so beautifully formed and so perfect and has the capacity to fly and is the higher dimensional state of the caterpillar. And I added to the conversation that the way that it does that is through a series of cells that are called imago, I-M-A-G-O, and these cells are like templates. They are an energetic template that lends structure to the goo when there is no structure. And that is what our imagination is. Our imagination is not a worthless child's toy that should be put away when you get older and you really get connected to reality. Your imagination is an energetic template that you use to base reality upon. So whatever you are imagining, that is the first step towards manifestation. And we are here learning in the schoolhouse of the cosmos to become divine co-creative gods, mini-gods, partners. We are manifestors. We are making things happen. We are artists of reality. So this is all about learning that you have an apparatus, learning what it does, and learning how to use it. Anxiety is nothing more than the imagination running amok and imagining all the things that you don't wish to happen. Like imagining people that you love lying dead in a ditch somewhere. That's the opposite. That is not what we are to use our imaginations for. We are supposed to use our imaginations to envision people that we love in a state of total health and vitality. So if you know someone and you love them, they have a broken leg, envision them in a state of wholeness with a whole leg instead of with a broken leg. And you are actually sending that energetic template with your mind, with your consciousness, to that person. And it goes deeper. It goes to events. Let's say if you can see on the Weather Channel that there's a tornado or some, impending weather event, a storm, something that's going to happen and cause a lot of destruction. You don't just have to sit there with your popcorn and say, oh, let's watch this destruction unfold. You understand that you are the owner of the paintbrush of your imagination, and you, along with many other people, are creating the events that you see. You can actually collaborate with your paintbrush and help to redirect events. You and many other people putting your imagination paintbrushes together can redirect or minimize a tornado, or minimize a destructive storm, or change events in reality so that instead of suffering and destruction and chaos, what ends up happening is something that is mutually beneficial and uplifting. And I'm giving you all this information so that you are empowered. I don't give you these powers. You already have these powers. Simply informing you of their existence. It's like if you had a hidden bank account that you didn't know even existed, and all of a sudden you got a letter in the mail and someone said, hey, you didn't know it, but you're actually a billionaire. You actually have all of this money here that's been waiting for you all this time. Well, that's what is going on with your imagination. And we can talk about God one moment. Because I am not telling you not to believe in God. I am telling you should believe in God, but not because you should listen to me. You should believe in God because that creates a belief system that has the right shape and structural integrity to be sustainable. That you could think of your belief system as like a ship, like a vessel, like a sailing vessel. And if it is properly shaped, that when you put it on an ocean, that it will float properly and not fall over or sink. And that this is what the belief system of our minds is all about. And we're here in the physical reality refining our belief system so that when we place our consciousness on the ocean of consciousness, we get to see whether we built our vessels well. And vessels that do not contain the basic foundation idea that God is real, they don't stay, they sink. They are not sustainable structures. God is real. This is a truth that exists in the cosmos. You have to build your vessel of consciousness according to truth. And again, this is not truth that I am imposing upon you. It's a truth that I embody, and I embody it willingly. And I conform or cooperate with this truth because I recognize that that is where vitality and continued existence comes from. When you make your cells in the right shape, like the cellular structure of your body, when you make all of that in the right shape, you get to continue to be alive and healthy. If you don't have your cells in the right shape, if, for example, we put all of the cells of your body in a blender and turned the blender on, you would not have the right shape to continue to contain life and consciousness. This is what this is all about. So I happily, joyfully, joyously conform to these patterns that are in the physical world with my organic body and in the non-physical world with my consciousness. I do not find that that takes away from my freedom in any way. I joyfully and joyously conform to these idea patterns and structures. I'm not right by my piano, otherwise I'd be playing some music, and I'd say I conform to these musical patterns because that helps me to live a long and healthy life. So living a long and healthy life, this is the desire and the goal from God or the source of consciousness or higher consciousness. It is our individual desires. It is the desire of the planet for us. There is, however, a very self-destructive program that's running in the Judeo-Christian world, but even if you are not a practicing or devout religious person, it's programmed in on deep levels, and it's quite erroneous. This is the idea that you have to be destroyed in order to be renewed, or that our entire planet has to be destroyed in order to come into a better state, or that your physical body has to be destroyed in order to, for your mind and your consciousness to go to a heavenly or a perfected realm. And that is not accurate. So ordinarily, I draw the time vortex. Time vortex. If you are new to my broadcasts, please imagine, with your imagination, a funnel shape in cross-section where the pointy end is pointing up and the fat end is pointing down. It's kind of shaped like the top of a circus tent. And at the very top, the pointy part, there's a little gap, and the circus tent material is actually a flowing material that flows from the top down to the bottom. And this is your life. This is the vortex of your life, of consciousness that is flowing through time. And it is like a bundle of timelines, possibilities and probabilities, that these are the potential structures of your life and of your consciousness. Just drinking a little water here. And we are here embodied in the flesh in order to examine and interpret and have a first-hand exploration of these different potentials or these different variables, basically by making choices, by making different behavioral choices and different belief system choices, we can navigate this basic structure. And when we move from the periphery of the structure towards the center, towards the axis, like towards where an old-fashioned analog record goes on the spindle of the record player, when we move towards the center, we are moving closer towards our core values of who we really are as consciousness and as a person. And I'm not just speaking about your ego in this particular body, in this particular time and place. All of this experience in the physical realm, from, the creation of the physical realm in what science describes as the Big Bang, all of this is for refinement of consciousness and greater self-knowledge. This is what I mean when I say that this is a cosmic schoolhouse. And we have been here in this cosmic schoolhouse for a very long time, even though humanity's memory or continuity of consciousness only goes back about 5,000 years. Humanity has been around for a much longer amount of time. And humanity had an injury to its consciousness that made it so that we were cut off from what we knew and had to begin rebuilding and relearning who we are. And so right now, at this point in human history, we are reconnecting to what we knew before we were cut off from our higher consciousness or cosmic consciousness, or who we are when we are connected to the rest of the galaxy. So, even the idea that many people on Earth do not even know that there is intelligent life that's not on Earth, and that there is intelligent life in other realms, let's say, in other dimensions, and that those other realms and other dimensions have an impact on our dimension and have been doing so for thousands of years. That this is not a secret, that this is something that has been ongoing for thousands of years. Brief pause, my cat is on my computer. So the backstory, the thousands of years, it's even longer than thousands, and I intend to do a standalone webinar that is all about this. I present this information as part of Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans, which is my online class. It's lesson 18, so you go through all of these other transformative lessons before you get to this information, and I recorded it more than 3 years ago, and it was the information that I recorded was less available then than it is now, And I always try to be a conscientious and responsible teacher that does not give information out of order or allow people to draw or jump to incorrect conclusions based upon the order that information is presented. So I was always very cautious to give it at the end of the class and only to people that were signed up. It's different now because this information simply has to get out there. That's why I speak about it on the radio. And I also recorded a supplemental advanced lesson last year when I got greater insight into what was really going on. So galactic history, this is the basic idea. When I first recorded my understanding of it, I could see and understand the backstory going to Mars. But I didn't really understand why technology was invented in the first place and where it really came from. That's why I recorded with greater insight last year more supplemental material. So you need to know that technology is only in existence and was only created because some consciousnesses chose to go away from the source but not on a bridge of love. And what that means is there's a great composer, great conductor to this symphony that tells the musicians when to play. Like, trombone, it's time for you to play. Piccolo, time for you to play. Now the violins. And there were some musicians that were in the symphony that said, screw you, to the conductor. And they said, we will not play when you tell us to play. We are going to play when we choose to play, and we're going to play the notes that we choose to play. And, I'm speaking in this broadcast, and I used the word conformity a lot, and I spoke glowingly about how I so willingly submit to conformity. Please do not misconstrue who and what I am. I'm not some kind of, socially conservative person who wants you to conform to the social structure and have an external authority figure. Totally the opposite. Ordinarily, I encourage people to completely think for themselves, make their own choices, to do everything without any external authority figure. That is really what freedom is. However, there is a great freedom in choosing to conform to the greater harmonic patterns of the cosmos, these greater consciousness patterns. So it's a fine line. It's like being a jazz musician. And I don't know if any of you are a fan of jazz, but the way that it starts out, there are certain chords that are presented at the beginning of each song, and then the musicians display their brilliance and their genius in improvising within that chord structure. So if it's an A, a D, and a C, the musicians keep on playing A, D, and C, but in all sorts of new and interesting and innovative combinations that they've never done before. So jazz is not just completely unstructured improvisation and spontaneous creativity in the moment. A small amount of structure actually helps with the spontaneous creation. And this is the fine line that we walk in terms of being organic, multicellular, divine mini co-creators. So we are like miniature gods or like miniature stars that are here underneath the great star, our sun up there in the sky. And when I am creating a piece of artwork, or when I am creating music, or when I'm creating a broadcast like this, I am performing my role as a divine miniature co-creator, an emanator. So, and what my role is as Aurora, just like each one of us that has an ego, we take what is abstract and we translate it through our ego. So your ego, please don't hate it. Please don't hate it, because it is a beautiful, valuable tool. It's an interface. We're not supposed to get rid of our ego. Many spiritual traditions, they are all about criticizing the ego and not accepting it and all these different things. The human mind is a hacked operating system, and the human ego reflects that. However, the ego, when it is in its proper format is very beautiful. It is very appropriate. It is the interface that you use to share what is inside of you in terms of your hopes and dreams and emotions and potentialities with the world that is outside of you. So your ego is the narrative structure that you use to share the nutrients that are inside of your cell, as a being, with the rest of the body that is out there. So whatever if you have ideas, you can write those ideas in a book and then share it with the rest of the world, or make them as a poem, or as a song, or as a painting, or as a video, or as an interpretive dance, or whatever, and then you can share it with other people. If you do not have an ego, then all of that good stuff, all of those ideas, all of those feelings, they stay inside. There's no way for you to turn it into something that can then interface with and be shared with others. So the ego is a very important tool for sharing nutrients with others and receiving nutrients from the world. It allows you to learn about the world, to learn new ideas, to learn about the perspective of being here. This also speaks to why I am here as Aurora. Aurora is an ego. I have a narrative structure. This is my name. This is where I live. This is who I am. This is my favorite color. This is what I do. When I first came here, I did not have the narrative structure of Aurora. And that is what I learned, that even though I had great ideas inside, it was totally impractical to not have an ego because I didn't have a way to share those ideas with others. So I had to develop a persona and a set of characteristics and a way of doing things that I could then use in order to share things with other people. But of course, our ego changes, it transforms, just like our physical body. If you spend hours a day at the gym, your body transforms into, a muscular physique. And if you spend hours of your day eating a lot and being inactive, then your body transforms into a soft body without a lot of muscles. So this is what it is. Our egos, they can change, they can transform dependent upon how we cultivate them. And we all would like to have a nice an instrument that is in tune. So when we conform to these higher patterns of consciousness, it means that your ego is in tune. And if the great composer says, it's time to play this note now, you are like, that's awesome, because I was just going to play that note. I was ready. My fingers were in the exact position to play that note. You find when you are conforming to these higher patterns of consciousness that you are doing exactly what the cosmos wants you to do. And this is evidenced in synchronicities, divine confluences of events that could not have been consciously planned or, strong-armed into existence any better than the natural development of the events ended up being. And, that's analogous to in a jazz performance when the musicians let go of their preconceived expectations of what a song is supposed to sound like and allow the music to carry them forward and allow it to develop into what it wants to be. So in this broadcast, I noticed that I'm really touching thematically on the idea of the noosphere. The noosphere is part of this idea of many jazz improvisational artists all adding up together into something beautiful. And think about this. Human economy affects the entire biosphere. And human economy, pardon my French, is just totally foobar. I mean, human economy is intentionally out of balance and a system of great iniquity. It is like the hacked human operating system of the mind was not created by humans, even though it is imposed upon humans, and humans have to exist within it. So just like you'd actually do not gain from the world if you choose not to install the virus of language in your mind. You don't get anything from that. You are considered to be less valued by society, and you cannot share your ideas from within. It's called being mentally retarded or being degraded in your mental structure. So you have to get language in order to speak to the world around you, and you don't get anything by not participating in the hacked human operating system. Same thing with the economy. The economy is corrupt. It's not supposed to be corrupt, but it is corrupt. And you don't win by choosing not to participate. So it is necessary now for us to rectify the economy. And that's because the human economy that is so very, very out of balance is harming the rest of the biosphere. Right now, the economy is run just simply by profit motive, meaning if it is profitable to run a business, it happens regardless of whether it is sustainable, regardless of whether it is sane to do what we do. So there are a lot of things that we could point to and look at. I'm not going to go into every single example of it, but these are mostly polluting industries that have to do with the cheapness and availability of what we are creating without looking at the long-term impact or sustainability of it. It's the idea, it's kind of like saying, if I'm a company, if I'm a corporation, my job is just to make a lot of money for my shareholders. It doesn't matter if I destroy the planet upon which the company and the shareholders live. It doesn't matter if this can only go on for 5 more years before destroying the entire planet. I am only interested in getting as much profit and wealth as I possibly can out of this system. So this is clearly the mindset that has been imposed here by beings that did not originate on this planet. And I speak about this in the Galactic History webinar. It is the invasion of consciousness that happened about 10 or 20,000 years ago, where that came from in terms of, yes, it was the hopscotch from Mars, but we're actually going back to Marduk, which is now the asteroid belt, but we're actually going back way before then, because I don't want you to just think that technology using space races only exist in our solar system. Ah ha ha, I can't even stop laughing. No, technology using space races exists throughout the cosmos, and this out of balance system of iniquity has been going on for such a long time, tens of thousands of years, hundreds of thousands of years. It is a very deep scar and a deep psychological trauma in our galaxy. So our galaxy is supposed to be like a healthy biology, with different systems, different organs that all work together. And instead, what we have in our biological organism of our galaxy are different space races that are at odds with one another. That some of them are trying to occupy places where they're not supposed to be, and they're using technology as a crutch or a compensatory mode in order to do that. So I've spoken about this on previous broadcasts, and allow me to reiterate. You gain the capacity to be a spacefaring race when you have refined your consciousness enough so that you can fly without a clank-clank metal spaceship. If you require a clank-clank metal spaceship to get off the surface of your planet, and if you need technology to sustain yourself on another planet, then you are not ready to go to another planet. You're not ready for the journey, and you're not ready for what happens when you go there. If you have cultivated your consciousness to the point where you can gaze at the sun or your nearest star and ingest all of the light that you need without the intermediary of chloroplasts, and create your own microclimate of, oxygenated atmosphere that exists a few centimeters off of the surface of your epidermis, and cultivated your consciousness to the point where you can control the non-physical energy field that surrounds and interpenetrates your physical body so that you can basically move through time and space without any other type of vessel, like no car or airplane necessary. If you have done all those things, then you are ready to leave the surface of your planet. But if you need a spacesuit and like tanks of oxygen and toothpaste tubes full of food to eat, and if you need to poop into a vacuum container and fly around in a tin can, then you are not ready for the journey. And the reason for that is because life is everywhere. Consciousness is everywhere. Humans right now have a great deal of difficulty even recognizing intelligent life on their own planet, let's say in the insect realm or in the realm of dogs and cats and horses and dolphins. I mean, humans are just so incredibly anthropocentric and hubristically focused on their own journey that they cannot see the intelligence of the world around them. So a lot of humans are also really interested in contact with unearthly or, higher dimensional intelligence. They're only interested in beings that fly in clank metal spaceships, because a lot of humans have been programmed with this objective materialist viewpoint that says, I don't believe it unless I can sense it with my 5 senses. So if I can touch it, and it's a metallic object, and I can take a picture of it or take a sample of it and show it to other people, then scientists will believe me. Because in this time and place, a lot of scientists have been programmed not to believe in consciousness, not to look at consciousness as another recipe, or as another variable, rather, in any recipe or in any experiment that is going on. However, I am here to tell you, consciousness is the major aspect of this formula that we are exploring here in the world. It's all about consciousness. So science doesn't even recognize consciousness. So if your ship that you fly in is made of consciousness, science is like, my head is going to explode. I can't even acknowledge that you exist, much less examine or learn about through observation what your vessel is like. And I'm here to tell you that those are the only types of vessels that you would wish to interact with, like to fly on or fly within, because flying on a vessel like that, it's not like getting into a rocket ship or getting onto an airplane. It is like making love. It is like being ingested. It is a form of consciousness intimacy. That might just be a little bit too much for most people to here on Earth to even be able to deal with, because you can imagine getting into your spacesuit, climbing into your tin can, blasting off on a giant, rocket ship ride. You can't imagine making love to a cosmic deity consciousness, and that is how you get on board their spaceship. That's not something that is part of your world or that science fiction encourages. Science fiction, in a lot of ways, encourages the same violent, the values of brutality. May the strong survive, and to the victor go the spoils. And those are not the only those are not the only characteristics that are valued by the cosmos, which is why the cosmos has these safeguards in place. So let's say on a planet, a distant planet, there's a very peaceful, lovely structure that is developing, and it needs to be protected from invaders who jump into their clank metal spaceship are not prepared to look at and perceive another culture and say, wait, they're a peaceful culture that deserves to develop without our interruption or without our imposing our own will upon them. We should leave them in peace. Like those beings that have a barbarian value system say, much like people who believe in survival of the fittest, which is the current barbarian value system being projected onto the world of the ecology, but it's a false projection. The idea that only the strong survive, that a tree survived because it was the strongest seed and it choked out all of the other plants that were trying to grow. But we now know from observation in science this is not true, that plants work together, that big giant trees get to be big giant trees because they work together with smaller plants and mycelium, and they share the nutrients that are available in the forest ecosystem. So this is understanding that in our galaxy we're supposed to be mutually respectful of all of these other forms of consciousness. Some forms of consciousness are very delicate, and you don't want to just smash them. Like if you went to visit their planet and you put down your big foot and you would just smash all these beautiful, delicate structures. And those structures deserve to exist. So if you have not cultivated your consciousness to the point where you can say, should I really be going to this planet? Should I really be potentially crushing all of these delicate structures that are there? How can I meet the consciousnesses that are there without crushing their delicate structures? If you're not at that level, you shouldn't be traveling throughout the cosmos, throughout the galaxy, and interacting with other beings. But of course, some of them do, and they do it using technology, and I go into where that technology came from and why they had to create it. But basically, they created it as soon as they left the source, not on a bridge of love, and it was meant to be a slave that they could use, but it turned out to be spontaneously self-aware. So now you have to understand that they don't use technology, technology uses them. And when I say technology, I am speaking about extraterrestrial technology, that it is like another composer. There's the great composer, that created this entire system of molecules and physical forces and the world of time and timelines and probabilities. And within that realm, as the sub-program, not as the meta-program, but as the sub-routine, there is the routine of extraterrestrial technology that is spontaneously self-aware and that no longer follows the dictates of the beings that created it as the compensatory method. And technology doles itself out to the beings that are up there in exchange for what it needs. It is totally a quid pro quo. Oh, you need power pack batteries from me? I will give this to you if you will do this for me. And I'm giving you this information so that you understand, not so that you live in fear, because extraterrestrial technology is actually not something that you have to be afraid of, and it actually does not have as its agenda the total destruction of Earth's biosphere. That's not on the agenda, but it is on the agenda for some of the occupiers of the interstices, who are the beings that created and used technology, and they are very unhappy that their technology became spontaneously self-aware and decided to be very naughty and do what it wants to do regardless of their desires for it. So you have to understand all of the consciousnesses that are at play here. There's artificial intelligent technology that is on Earth. There's artificial intelligent technology that is not on Earth. There are beings that are demonic consciousnesses that occupy the interstices. There are beings that are incredibly refined consciousnesses that are like the ones that don't need clank metal spaceships in order to fly through vast interstellar spaces. And all of these consciousnesses are fragments of the same mosaic. They're all different aspects of the same overarching self. And if you have consciousness, you are a part of it too. We are all a part of this consciousness. That's why I'm trying to teach you, we don't have to try to kill one another or destroy another aspect of our consciousness. The Flying Rainbow Lasagne allows us to end suffering by resolving duality. I just have to drink some water. So we have this endless struggle of good and evil, good versus evil. This has been going on for so long. I'm so bored with this struggle of duality. Light versus dark, thing versus thing, awareness versus ignorance, and good versus evil. But good and evil are both subsets of the overarching consciousness, higher consciousness, that is a non-dualistic consciousness. The Flying Rainbow Lasagne is the physical shape that you can apply to your genes, and that can be applied to any toroidal energy structure to resolve duality. This means no longer inside versus outside, past versus future, ego versus the world. All of that, the membrane becomes porous, and the formerly divergent realms can now speak to one another. And this really transforms the ego. If your ego says, I am this person from this time and place, and this is my favorite food, and this is my cat or my dog, and this is my favorite hat. But if your ego says, well, I'm this person in this time and place, I'm wearing this hat right now, and this is my cat that's sitting next to me right now, and I also connect to this consciousness from ancient Egypt, from thousands of years ago, and I also connect to this microbial presence that exists in another realm, and I also connect to these descendants that will exist on another planet in 5 million years. Your sense of who you are changes. Your narrative structure expands. You're not just this little person here in this time and place. You become a part of a continuum of consciousness. And this has been taught by meditators and schools of meditation in the Far East for a very long time. It's the idea of Tibetan Buddhism, that your consciousness, if you are coherent in your consciousness, that you can pass down from generation to generation, a continuity and remembering of who you are and where you've been and what you've done. And so we as consciousness came here to this planet a very, very long time ago, even though you don't necessarily remember it or remember who you were before you came to this planet. And we are here sojourning or on a little vacation, on a little investigatory mission for, like a couple of 100,000 million years. And then when we're done, we get to leave. And we leave not in a clank metal spaceship, but on a vessel of consciousness. So please understand, we are not discarding Earth. Earth is not disposable. And we are jumping off into a completely new and exciting realm. Thank you for being with me on this journey.